Jake Morrison stood in the grand hall of the Crystal Palace and tried not to look nervous. Around him, dozens of alien beings moved with grace and purpose. The Valorans were tall, much taller than humans, with skin that seemed to shimmer in the light. Strange markings glowed softly on their faces and arms, changing colors as they spoke to each other. He was here as part of Earth's first real diplomatic mission to the Valoran Empire. After 3 years of careful communication through space channels, humanity had finally been invited to their homeworld. It was a big deal. The Valorans were one of the most powerful species in this part of the galaxy. If humans could make friends with them, it would change everything. Ambassador Kate Sullivan stood beside him, her face calm and professional. She had been preparing for this moment for months. Behind them, Dr. Lisa Park was taking notes on her tablet, recording everything she saw. The Valorans had been polite but cold so far, treating the human delegation like curious children who had wandered into an important meeting. Jake's job was simple in theory. He was supposed to observe, learn about Valoran customs, and help Kate navigate any cultural problems. In practice, it meant standing in this enormous hall trying to figure out what all the strange gestures and color changes meant. The palace was incredible. Walls made of some kind of crystal caught the light and threw it around in patterns that seemed almost alive. The ceiling stretched up so high that Jake couldn't see the top clearly. Everything about this place was designed to make visitors feel small and impressed. It was working. A group of Valoran officials swept past them, barely glancing at the humans. Kate smiled politely anyway. Jake had learned in his years as a military pilot that showing respect cost nothing, even when you weren't getting it back. Then he saw her. Across the hall, standing on a raised platform, was someone who could only be royalty. She wore flowing garments that seemed to be made of liquid metal, and the markings on her skin glowed brighter than anyone else's. They shifted through shades of blue and purple as she spoke to the people around her. Everything about her posture said power and confidence. Jake found himself staring. He told himself it was professional interest, that he was just trying to learn their body language. But that wasn't entirely true. There was something captivating about the way she moved. The way others seemed to orbit around her like planets around a star. He was trying to figure out what the color changes in her markings meant when she suddenly stopped talking. Her head turned, and her eyes locked directly onto his. Jake's stomach dropped. He'd been caught staring like a tourist. This was exactly what Kate had warned him not to do. Rule number 1 of first contact: don't offend the locals. Rule number 2: definitely don't offend their royalty. He started to look away, to pretend he'd been looking at something else. But something stopped him. The alien princess wasn't looking angry or offended. Instead, her markings shifted to a warm golden color, and her lips curved into something that looked remarkably like a smile. She said something to the officials around her and then started walking. Not just in his general direction, directly toward him. The crowd seemed to part automatically, people moving out of her way without even thinking about it. Kate noticed too. "Jake," she whispered urgently, "that's Princess Zira Nell. Don't say anything stupid." The princess crossed the hall with long, confident strides. She was even taller up close, and Jake had to tilt his head slightly to maintain eye contact. Her markings were doing something complicated now, swirling through different colors too fast for him to track. She stopped directly in front of him, ignoring Kate and Lisa completely. When she spoke, her voice was surprisingly clear. The translation device in his ear worked perfectly, turning her words into English with only a slight delay. "You like what you see, don't you, human?" The words hung in the air. Kate made a small, worried sound. Several nearby Valorans stopped their conversations to watch. Jake knew he should probably apologize, make some diplomatic excuse about learning their culture. That's what his training said to do. But something about the way the princess was looking at him, with that slight smile and those bright golden markings, made him choose honesty instead. "Yes," he said simply. "I was trying to understand what the colors mean. Your markings are fascinating. We don't have anything like that on Earth." The princess tilted her head, studying him. Her markings flickered, then settled on a steady amber color. "Most beings from younger species lie when caught staring at royalty. They make excuses. You don't." "Would lying make it better?" Jake asked. She laughed. It was a strange sound, musical but with an edge to it. "No, lies are boring. We have too many of them already." She turned to Kate, finally acknowledging her presence. "Ambassador Sullivan, I request that this one serves as my personal liaison during your stay. I want to learn more about humans who tell the truth." Kate looked like she'd swallowed something unpleasant, but she nodded. "Of course, Your Highness. It would be our honor." The princess looked back at Jake. "Good. We start tomorrow. Don't disappoint me, Jake Morrison. I chose you because you were brave enough to look directly at me. Let's see if you're brave in other ways, too." She walked away, and the crowd swallowed her up. Jake stood there, very aware that dozens of aliens were now staring at him. Some of their markings had turned colors that probably weren't friendly. "What?" Kate said very quietly. "Just happened?" Lisa was typing frantically on her tablet. "I think Jake just got recruited by alien royalty." Jake watched the princess disappear into another hall. His heart was still racing. "Yeah," he said. "I think you're right." He had a feeling his simple diplomatic mission had just become a lot more complicated. The next morning, 2 Valoran guards arrived at Jake's quarters before he'd finished his breakfast. They didn't speak, just gestured for him to follow. Kate gave him a worried look as he left, but there wasn't much choice in the matter. When alien royalty wanted to see you, you went. They led him through corridors that seemed to go on forever, each one more elaborate than the last. Eventually, they reached a massive door that opened onto an arena. Jake stepped out and had to shield his eyes from the bright sunlight. The arena was huge, with seats rising up on all sides. Most of them were empty, but Princess Ziranel sat in a private box, watching him. She stood as he approached, her markings shifting through shades of green. "Human Jake," she called down. "Do your people have warriors?" Jake thought about his time in the military. "Yes, we have soldiers, fighters, people who protect others." "Good." She gestured, and a door on the opposite side of the arena opened. A Valoran warrior stepped out, wearing armor that gleamed like polished stone. The warrior was massive, even by Valoran standards, carrying a long staff that crackled with energy. "This is how we learn about new species," the princess said, "through their warriors. Show me what humans can do." Jake looked at the warrior, then back at the princess. "With respect, Your Highness, I'm a diplomat now, not a soldier." "But you were a soldier once." It wasn't a question. "I read your file, pilot, fighter, you know combat, or are all humans cowards when facing a real challenge?" Jake felt a spike of irritation. This was a test, obviously. She was pushing him to see how he'd react. The smart thing would be to decline politely, keep the diplomatic peace. Instead, he found himself walking toward the center of the arena. The Valoran warrior watched him approach with what might have been amusement. One of the guards tossed Jake a training staff, simpler than the warrior's weapon, but solid enough. It felt wrong in his hands, the balance all off compared to human weapons. The warrior didn't wait. He came at Jake fast, staff spinning. Jake barely got his own weapon up in time to block. The impact sent vibrations up his arms. The warrior was incredibly strong. Jake backed up, trying to find space to think. The warrior pressed forward, staff moving in complex patterns. Jake recognized some of them. They were similar to fighting styles he'd seen on Earth, but faster and more aggressive. He blocked another strike, then another. His arms were already getting tired. The warrior was toying with him, Jake realized, testing his defense. Fine. If she wanted to see what humans could do, he'd show her. Instead of backing up again, Jake stepped forward into the next attack. It surprised the warrior just enough for Jake to slip past his guard. Jake's staff wasn't aimed at the warrior's body, though. He went for the legs, low and fast. The warrior jumped back, actually giving ground for the first time. His markings flickered orange. Jake didn't let up. He'd lose eventually, he knew that. The warrior was stronger, faster, and had better reach. But Jake had one advantage. The warrior didn't know how humans fought. He kept moving, changing tactics, doing things that probably looked random to Valoran eyes. He mixed in moves from different martial arts he'd studied. A feint from boxing, a leg sweep from judo, a staff strike from his military training. Nothing that would work on its own, but together they kept the warrior off balance. The fight lasted maybe 5 minutes. To Jake, it felt like an hour. Finally, the warrior's staff caught him across the ribs, and he went down hard. The warrior stood over him, staff raised for a final strike that never came. He'd made his point. Jake lay on the ground, breathing hard. Everything hurt. He was pretty sure he'd have bruises on his bruises tomorrow. Princess Ziranel appeared beside him. He hadn't even seen her leave the box. She looked down at him, markings swirling through several colors at once. "You lost," she said. "Yes," Jake gasped out. "But you didn't quit, even when you knew you couldn't win." She offered him her hand. After a moment, he took it. She pulled him to his feet with surprising gentleness. "Your fighting style is chaos. No pattern, no discipline. It's offensive to watch." Jake waited for the insult to continue. "It's also effective," she added. "Against an enemy who doesn't know what to expect. You made Corvin work for that victory. Most beings surrender once they see the skill gap." She studied him with those strange alien eyes. "Tell me, Jake Morrison, why did you keep fighting?" "Because giving up would have been worse than losing," he said. "You asked what humans can do. We can keep going even when we probably shouldn't." Her markings went bright gold again. "Come, walk with me. You've earned a conversation." They walked through gardens that looked like something from a dream. Plants with crystal leaves grew next to water features that seemed to defy gravity. The princess was quiet for a while, just leading him deeper into the garden. "My empire has enemies," she finally said. "Powerful ones. We are strong, but strength alone won't be enough forever. I need to know if humans are potential allies or just another small species that will disappoint us." "And beating me up in an arena told you what you needed to know?" Jake asked. His ribs still hurt. "It told me you're not afraid to try impossible things, that you think differently than we do, that you value persistence over power." She stopped beside a fountain. "These are good traits in an ally. But I need to understand more. Tell me about Earth, about humans, not the official diplomatic answers, the real ones." So Jake talked. He told her about human history, about how humanity had always been too curious for its own good, how they'd climbed mountains just to see what was on top, how they'd sailed across oceans without knowing what was on the other side, how they'd reached for the stars even when everyone said it was impossible. The princess listened, her markings shifting colors as different emotions played across her face. She asked questions that were surprisingly insightful, pushing past the surface to understand what made humans tick. Hours passed. The sun moved across the sky. Guards appeared occasionally but kept their distance. Jake found himself relaxing, talking to her not as a diplomat, but as one person to another. "You adapt," she said eventually. "That's your real strength, not technology or weapons or numbers. You change to fit the situation. We Valorans are powerful, but we're rigid. We do things the way they've always been done." "Is that bad?" Jake asked. "Sometimes. Traditions give us strength, but they also trap us." She looked at him. "You're already teaching me new ways to think, human. That's valuable. More valuable than you know. They walked back toward the palace as the sky turned orange. Jake's body ached, but his mind felt clearer than it had since arriving. The princess wasn't just testing him. She was looking for something specific, something she thought humans might have. "Same time tomorrow," she said as they reached the entrance. "I want to learn more. And Jake, next time don't hold back. Show me everything humans can do." She left him there, disappearing into the palace. Jake watched her go, wondering what he'd gotten himself into. This was supposed to be simple diplomacy. Instead, he was teaching an alien princess about humanity while nursing bruised ribs. He had a feeling things were about to get much more interesting. The public ceremony was supposed to be simple. Princess Ziranel would officially welcome the human delegation, there would be speeches, and then everyone would drink something that tasted like fruit and metal. Jake had been briefed 3 times about proper protocol. He stood in the crowd, wearing formal diplomatic clothes that felt stiff and uncomfortable. Kate and Lisa were somewhere behind him. The princess stood on a raised platform, addressing the gathered officials in her own language. The translation device in Jake's ear turned her words into English. She was talking about unity, about the future, about opening doors between species, standard diplomatic stuff, but she delivered it with genuine passion. Her markings glowed steady blue, which Jake had learned meant calm determination. Something felt wrong, though. He couldn't put his finger on it, just a feeling in his gut. The same instinct that had kept him alive as a pilot when instruments said everything was fine, but something was off. He scanned the crowd, looking for anything unusual. Most of the Valorans seemed focused on the princess. But there, near the edge of the platform, a figure in official robes, but their markings were fluctuating wildly. Stress? Fear? Something else? The figure's hand moved inside their robes. Jake didn't think. He just moved. Years of training took over, muscle memory from a life before diplomacy. He pushed through the crowd, ignoring the surprised sounds around him. The figure on the platform pulled out a device, something small and metallic that definitely wasn't ceremonial. Jake hit the princess from the side, wrapping his arms around her and pulling her down. They fell together off the platform just as the device activated. A blast of energy tore through the space where she'd been standing, scorching the air itself. They landed hard on the ground below. The princess made a sound of pain or surprise. Jake rolled, putting himself between her and the platform, scanning for more threats. Chaos erupted. Guards rushed forward. The figure who'd fired the weapon tried to run but was tackled by other Valorans. People were shouting in multiple languages. Alarms began blaring throughout the palace. Jake looked down at the princess. "Are you hurt?" Her markings were flashing red and orange, colors he'd never seen before. "You pushed me," she said, sounding shocked. "You pushed royalty." "You're welcome," Jake replied. His shoulder throbbed where he'd hit the ground, but everything seemed to work. "Are you okay?" Before she could answer, guards surrounded them. Not just any guards. These wore different armor, darker and more elaborate. Within seconds, Jake found himself yanked away from the princess and slammed face first against a wall. His arms were pulled behind his back, and metal restraints clicked around his wrists. "Wait," he heard the princess say, but her voice was distant now. Someone was shouting in Valoran. Then Kate's voice, speaking careful diplomatic phrases. It all blurred together as Jake was dragged out of the ceremony hall. They took him to a room with no windows. It wasn't exactly a cell, but it wasn't comfortable either. The guards left him there, hands still bound behind his back. Minutes passed, then an hour. Jake's shoulder was really hurting now, and his arms were going numb. Finally, the door opened. A Valoran officer entered, wearing armor marked with symbols Jake didn't recognize. His markings were cold silver. "I am Commander Vex," the officer said, "head of royal security. You attacked the princess." "I saved her," Jake corrected. "Convenient timing." Vex's eyes were hard. Your species arrives and suddenly there's an assassination attempt on our princess. You were the one who noticed the attacker. You were the one who touched royalty without permission. Very convenient. You think I set this up? Jake couldn't believe what he was hearing. Why would I do that? To create a bond. To make the princess trust you. To gain access to our royal family. Vex leaned closer. We know how ambitious young species are. You think one human playing hero will win you favor? That's insane. Is it? The attacker used a weapon we've never seen before, not Velarin technology. Perhaps human technology? Jake's blood went cold. That's not possible. We didn't bring any weapons. So you say. Vex straightened. Your entire delegation is now under house arrest until we complete our investigation. If we find proof of human involvement, there will be consequences. He left. Jake sat there in the empty room, mind racing. This was bad. Really bad. If the Velarins decided Earth was behind the assassination attempt, it wouldn't just end the diplomatic mission. It could mean war. Hours passed. No one came. Jake's arms went from numb to painful and back to numb. He tried to think through the situation logically. Who benefited from killing the princess? Who benefited from humans being blamed? The weapon bothered him. Vex was right about one thing. It hadn't looked Velarin, but it hadn't looked human either, which meant a third party. Someone who wanted to stop the alliance between humans and Velarins. But how could he prove that while locked in a room? The door opened again. This time it was a younger guard carrying a food tray. The guard set it down, glanced at the closed door, then quickly removed Jake's restraints. Eat fast, the guard whispered in heavily accented English. Then follow me. The princess commands it. Jake rubbed, feeling back into his arms. The princess, she's okay? She demands to see you. I have 5 minutes to get you to her private chambers before the other guards notice. Move. They slipped through back corridors Jake hadn't seen before. The guards seemed to know every shadow, every blind spot in the security. They reached a door marked with symbols that had to mean royal family. The guard knocked 3 times, paused, then twice more. The door opened. Princess Zyronel stood there, and Jake had never been so relieved to see anyone. Inside, quickly, she said. Her private chambers were smaller than Jake expected, but filled with strange and beautiful things. Books, devices, art from what had to be a dozen different worlds. She sealed the door and turned to face him. You saved my life, she said simply. You're welcome. Again. Commander Vex thinks you're part of a conspiracy. I'm not. I know. Her markings were shifting through complex patterns. I felt your mind during the attack. Pure instinct. No planning. You just reacted to protect me. No Velarin would have moved that fast. They would have followed protocol, alerted guards, done everything properly. You just acted. Is that a compliment? Jake asked. It's an observation, and it's why I believe you. She moved to a desk covered in glowing screens. I've been analyzing the weapon used. You're right, it's not Velarin technology, but it's also not in any human database we have access to. That means a third party wants me dead and wants your species blamed for it. Jake moved closer to look at the screens. Who would benefit from that? Many beings. We have enemies. But more specifically, some within my own empire fear change. They see your species as chaotic, unpredictable, dangerous to our ordered way of life. Her markings flickered. Commander Vex is one of them. He's been vocal about opposing the alliance with Earth. You think he's involved? I think he's willing to believe human guilt very easily. Whether that's because he's part of the plot or just because he fears you, I don't know yet. She looked at him. But I need your help to find out. You see things differently than we do. You think in ways we don't. I need that advantage. I'm under house arrest, Jake pointed out. Not much help I can be from a locked room. The princess smiled. It was the same expression from the first day, confident and a little dangerous. Then it's good that I have access to areas no one else does, and that I have a human who doesn't always follow the rules. She pulled up more screens. We have evidence to find and a conspiracy to expose. Are you with me, Jake Morrison? Jake thought about Kate, about the rest of the delegation stuck under guard, about Earth's chance at joining the larger galactic community, about the princess who'd trusted him enough to break him out of detention. I'm with you, he said. Let's find out who's trying to kill you. Princess Ziranel led Jake through passages that seemed to exist between the official corridors. Secret ways, she explained, built into the palace centuries ago. They emerged in a room filled with ancient technology, displays showing security feeds from across the palace. This is how I've been watching, she said. The official investigation is going nowhere. Commander Vex is controlling all the information. Jake studied the screens. Show me footage from before the attack. Maybe we missed something. They spent hours reviewing recordings. Jake's eyes burned from staring at alien symbols and trying to pick out details. The princess explained what different things meant, translating words and gestures. Slowly, patterns emerged. There, Jake said, pointing. That official in the blue robes. They've been near Vex 3 times in the past day. Always in corners, always brief. That's General Kryn. He's part of the military council. The princess's markings went dark purple. If he's involved, this is bigger than I thought. They found more connections, meetings that shouldn't have happened, documents accessed that had nothing to do with official duties, a network of officers and officials all connected to Vex, all opposed to the human alliance. But evidence wasn't enough. In Valoran society, accusations against military leaders required absolute proof. Or, the princess explained, there was another way. The trial of worth, she said quietly, an ancient tradition. If you face 3 challenges and survive, the royal council must hear your testimony, no matter who it accuses. What kind of challenges? Jake asked, though he suspected he wouldn't like the answer. Mind, body, and spirit. We already know you can fight. The trial of body is satisfied. But the others... She looked at him seriously. The trial of mind is a strategic puzzle that usually takes days to solve. The trial of spirit requires a neural link with someone of royal blood. Your thoughts, your memories, everything exposed. It's not comfortable even for Velarans. And if I fail, then Vex wins. Your delegation is expelled. Earth is marked as hostile. The alliance dies. Her voice was soft. I wouldn't ask this if there was another way. Jake thought about Kate and Lisa, about everyone back on Earth who'd worked to make this mission happen, about what it would mean for humanity to lose this chance. Okay, he said. Let's do it. The next day, the princess invoked the trial of worth before the royal council. Commander Vex tried to object, but tradition was absolute. If a royal demanded it, it would happen. Jake was brought from detention to face the first challenge. The trial of mind took place in a chamber with a massive display showing a 3-dimensional puzzle. Thousands of pieces floated in the air, each connected to others in complex ways. The goal was to arrange them into a perfect sphere. Most Valorans complete this in 3 to 4 days, the council leader explained. You have until sunset. Begin. Jake stared at the puzzle. It was overwhelming. Each piece affected dozens of others. Move one wrong and you'd have to start over. He could see why it took days. A Valoran would carefully plan each move, working systematically through the problem. But Jake wasn't Valoran. He'd learned game theory as a pilot. The idea that sometimes the fastest solution wasn't the careful one. He started moving pieces rapidly, not worrying about perfection. Instead, he looked for patterns. Which pieces naturally wanted to connect? Which areas formed stable structures? He worked in bursts, solving small sections, then connecting them. It looked chaotic, and several council members made disapproving sounds. But after 3 hours, he had half the sphere complete. After 5 hours, 3/4. The sun was setting when he placed the final piece. The sphere glowed, signaling completion. The chamber fell silent. "Impossible," someone whispered. The council leader's markings were bright yellow with surprise. "Trial of mind is complete. Proceed to trial of spirit." They took Jake to a darker chamber. The princess was already there, waiting beside a device that looked organic and mechanical at the same time. Neural connection technology, she'd explained. It would link their minds directly. "This will show everyone your true intentions," she said to him quietly. "All your memories, your feelings, everything. Are you ready?" "Not really," Jake admitted. "But let's do it anyway." They attached cables to both of them. The princess took his hands. Her markings began to pulse in rhythm with the machine. Then Jake felt something strange, like a door opening in his mind. Suddenly he wasn't just himself. He could feel the princess's presence, her thoughts touching his. It was overwhelming and intimate, in a way nothing physical could match. She began to sift through his memories. But something unexpected happened. As she experienced his thoughts, Jake experienced hers too. He felt her loneliness, the weight of being royalty in a rigid society. He felt her excitement when she first read about humans, about their chaos and creativity. He felt her genuine desire to help her people by forming the alliance. He saw her memories of the attack, her fear, her surprise when he'd saved her, the way she'd realized humans were more than she'd expected. The connection went deeper. She saw his childhood on Earth, his family, his reasons for becoming a diplomat. She felt his love for his home world and his hope that humanity could be something better than its violent history. She saw the moment he'd first seen her in the palace and felt his genuine fascination with her culture. Time lost meaning. They existed in that shared space, understanding each other in ways words could never accomplish. Every fear, every hope, every secret exposed between them. Finally, the connection ended. They separated, gasping. Jake felt like he'd run a marathon. The princess's markings were cycling through colors so fast they blurred together. The council leader spoke. "What did you see, princess?" "Truth," she said, her voice shaky. "Complete truth. This human has no deception in him regarding the attack. He reacted purely to protect me. He has no knowledge of the conspiracy." She looked at the council. "But I saw something else. Through his memories, I found evidence. When he was detained, he noticed things, details, connections between Commander Vex and others." She turned to Vex, who stood among the council members. His markings had gone dark, almost black. "I saw through Jake's eyes how you controlled the investigation," she continued. "How you made sure evidence disappeared. How you met with General Kryn in secret. The neural link doesn't lie. I experienced his memories as if they were my own." "This is absurd," Vex said. "You're trusting the word of a human over loyal Velerans?" "I'm trusting what I saw with my own mind," the princess replied. "Trial of spirit is complete. Jake Morrison has proven his worth. Now the council must hear his testimony." But Vex wasn't done. "If you insist on believing this human's story, then you're as dangerous as he is. The council should know that the princess has been compromised by human influence." "Careful, Commander," the princess warned. "No, this ends now." Vex raised his hand, and suddenly guards loyal to him moved forward. "The princess is clearly unfit to lead. This alliance threatens everything we've built. I'm taking control for the good of the Empire." Jake looked at the princess. Her eyes met his, and in that moment they didn't need a neural link to understand each other. This had just become a lot more complicated. The council chamber erupted into chaos. Some guards moved to protect the princess, while others followed Vex's orders. Council members shouted in Valoran, markings flashing angry reds and oranges. Jake found himself pushed back against a wall, trying to track who was on which side. Vex's voice cut through the noise. "The princess has been corrupted by human influence. She uses their chaos against our traditions. For the safety of the empire, she must be removed from succession." "That's not your decision to make," the princess shot back. Her markings blazed bright red, the angriest Jake had seen them. "You're committing treason, Commander." "I'm protecting our way of life." Vex gestured and his guards moved forward. "Take her into custody, gently. She's still royalty, even if she's made poor choices." Jake assessed the situation quickly. They were outnumbered. The princess had maybe 6 loyal guards against Vex's 20. Most of the council members were staying back, unwilling to commit to either side yet. Classic politics, but Jake had been in worse situations. And he'd just spent hours connected to the princess's mind. He knew how she thought now. More importantly, she knew how he thought. He caught her eye and tilted his head slightly toward the door. She gave the tiniest nod. "You know what your problem is, Vex?" Jake said loudly. Everyone stopped to look at the human. "You keep saying humans are chaotic and unpredictable, but you still think you know what we'll do." "Silence," Vex snapped. "You have no voice here." "That's the thing about chaos," Jake continued, moving slowly toward where the princess stood. "It's really hard to plan for." He grabbed a ceremonial banner from the wall and yanked hard. The heavy fabric came down, falling over several of Vex's guards. In the confusion, Jake grabbed the princess's hand and ran. They burst out of the council chamber into the corridor beyond. Shouts followed them. The princess led them down a side passage, then another. Behind them, guards were closing in. "The human delegation!" Jake gasped as they ran. "We need Kate and the others. More people means more options." "This way," the princess said. They found the quarters where the human team was being held. 2 guards stood outside, looking confused at the sound of running footsteps. The princess didn't slow down. She hit the first guard with a move Jake recognized from their sparring match. He took the second one, using the momentum of their run to catch the guard off balance. Inside, Kate and Lisa looked up in shock. "No time," Jake said. "We're busting you out. Vex is attempting a coup." Kate's diplomatic training kicked in immediately. "What do you need?" "We need to prove Vex was behind the assassination attempt and stop him from taking control," the princess explained rapidly. "Jake's testimony isn't enough now that he's openly acted against us." "But we have evidence," Lisa said, grabbing her tablet. "I've been analyzing the weapon used in the attack. It's definitely not human or Velaran. It matches technology from the Corthan Syndicate." "The Corthans?" The princess's markings went pale. "They're our enemies. If Vex is working with them, that's not just treason. That's selling out the entire empire." "Can you prove it?" Kate asked. "I have data trails," Lisa said. "Communications between Velaran military channels and known Corthan frequencies, but I need access to the palace security system to show everyone." The princess thought fast. "The main control center. We can broadcast from there to every screen in the palace. Show everyone the evidence at once." "Vex will have guards there," Jake pointed out. "Probably lots of guards," Kate added. "Then we'll need a distraction," the princess said. She looked at Jake. "You said humans are good at improvising. Prove it." They split up. Kate and the princess headed for the control center through the secret passages. Jake and Lisa took the main corridors, making sure they were seen. As expected, Vex's guards spotted them within minutes. Jake led them on a chase through the palace, deliberately staying just ahead. Lisa was breathing hard, not used to this kind of physical activity. "This was a terrible plan," she gasped. "It's working, though," Jake pointed out, as more guards joined the chase behind them. They led the guards away from the control center, weaving through corridors and chambers. Jake used every trick he knew, every tactic from his training. When they finally got cornered in a dead end, At least 30 guards surrounded them. That's when every screen in the palace lit up at once. Lisa's data scrolled across them in simple, clear formats. Communication logs between Vex and Corthan agents, payment transfers, plans to destabilize the Empire and stop the Human Alliance, and most damning footage of Vex meeting with a known Corthan operative the day before the assassination attempt. The princess's voice came through every speaker. "Citizens of the Valoran Empire, you're seeing evidence of betrayal at the highest levels of our military. Commander Vex has been working with our enemies. He staged an assassination attempt on me to blame the humans and prevent our alliance." Vex's face appeared on another screen. "Lies! The human corrupted the princess. This evidence is manufactured." "Is it?" Kate's voice joined the broadcast. "Because we can show you independent verification from 3 separate sources. Unless you think humans are sophisticated enough to fake Valoran military security protocols." The guards surrounding Jake and Lisa looked at each other uncertainly. Their markings showed confusion, doubt. "Stand down," one of them said to the others. "If what the princess says is true, we're following a traitor." The guards who'd remained loyal to tradition began abandoning Vex. Others, clearly part of his conspiracy, tried to fight back. Brief chaos erupted throughout the palace as loyalists clashed with traitors. In the control center, Vex himself appeared with his remaining guards. But the princess had planned for that too. The loyal guards from the council chamber had followed, and now Vex was surrounded. "It's over," the princess told him. "Your conspiracy is exposed. The Corthan connection is proven. You've lost." Vex's markings turned almost completely black. For a moment, Jake thought he might fight anyway, but then his shoulders slumped. The guards moved in and restrained him. The coup attempt collapsed within an hour. Vex and his co-conspirators were taken into custody. The council, faced with undeniable evidence, unanimously voted to continue the Human Alliance and formally condemned the conspiracy. 3 days later, Jake stood in the same grand hall where this had all started. But this time, he wasn't a nervous diplomat trying not to offend anyone. He was being honored as a hero of the Empire, along with Kate and Lisa. The princess presented them with medals of honor, official recognition of their service. When she reached Jake, she paused. "You saved my life twice," she said. "Once from an assassin and once from my own people's fear of change. The Empire owes you a debt." "Just doing my job," Jake replied. Her markings shifted to warm gold. "No, you did more than your job. You showed us that being different isn't dangerous. It's valuable." She leaned closer and lowered her voice. "Also, having our minds linked was intense. You think very loudly." Jake laughed. "Sorry about that. Humans are messy thinkers." "It's not a bad thing," she said softly. The ceremony continued. The alliance was formally signed. Earth was welcomed as a partner to the Valoran Empire. It was everything the mission had hoped for and more. Afterward, Jake found the princess alone on a balcony, looking out at the setting sun. He approached quietly. "Do you remember when you caught me staring at you?" he asked. "That first day?" "Yes. You were being obvious about it. You asked if I liked what I saw, and you said yes." Her markings flickered with amusement. Very direct for a diplomat. "I'm learning that directness works with you." Jake stood beside her. "I like what I see even more now, after everything we've been through, after seeing inside your mind." The princess's markings shifted through several colors before settling on soft pink. "Having someone else in my thoughts was terrifying, but also freeing. You understand me in ways my own people never will." "Is that allowed?" Jake asked. "A princess and a human diplomat?" "Probably not." She looked at him, and her expression was both nervous and determined. "But I've learned from humans that sometimes the best things happen when you ignore the rules. We can take this slowly, navigate the politics together." if you want to. Jake thought about the risks, the complications, the fact that they were from different worlds in more ways than one. Then he thought about how well they worked together, how they understood each other without words after the neural link. "Yeah," he said. "I want to." She smiled, that same confident grin from the first day. "Good, because Earth and the Empire have a lot of work ahead. Trade agreements, cultural exchanges, joint military operations against the Korthans. You'll need to stay here as permanent liaison." "Is that an official assignment?" Jake asked. "It's a royal command," she replied. Then her voice softened. "And a personal request." They stood together on the balcony, looking out at two worlds coming together. It wouldn't be easy. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, political complications. But Jake had learned something important during his time with the princess. Sometimes the most valuable alliances are the ones nobody expects, and sometimes the best relationships start with someone bold enough to stare and someone confident enough to smile back. Behind them, Earth hung in the sky next to the Valoran sun. Two worlds, different but no longer separate. It seemed like a good start.